I want to say the next speaker is James Brown, but I'll introduce you as James Benedict Brown. Thank you. I get really tight about people using my middle name, not because anyone's ever going to confuse me with the other James Brown, but because if you try and Google me, you will never find me. That's the only reason. I know you're not going to confuse me with him. Okay, just make that clear. I'm a lecturer in architecture at Norwich University of the Arts. If you have been in Norwich for a while, you may know that as the Art School or NACA or Norwich Institute of Art and Design, but whatever, it's those buildings over there, and we're the best specialist creative arts institution in the country, and we now teach architecture. We've got 1 year worth of students. We're taking our second cohort in. We have a couple of places in Clearing, so if anyone's interested, you need to be on the phones next week. And I'm going to talk tonight about, I'm going to stand over here and look over there because it's going to be easier. So look over there, don't look at me. That'd be great. Might actually have a beer. Well, no. Okay, we'll go with this and we'll see how we go. About 8 years ago, I moved to Canada and I tried to get a job as an architect, and it didn't work out for many reasons. Canada's a huge country. I chose the one part of it where I didn't speak the first language, but I did spend the following year learning French. I lived in Montreal, and I tried to work. It didn't work out. But while I was in Montreal, I became very interested in a lot of things that are peripheral to architecture, including the architecture of TV newsrooms, really specific. This is 2005. This is the least popular, least watched, and therefore least profitable English language TV station in Montreal. They had about 1,000 viewers every night, and this is their newsroom. Desk, man, and a glass wall with the control room behind it. Now, we all know about how architecture gives TV news its authority. Even Look East has a kind of fake painted backdrop of the forum behind it, because it kind of gives us the idea, oh, they're in a big building, they've got lots of employees working tirelessly to get you the news, even though the forum is a terrible building for TV and radio production. The acoustics are terrible. It was never built for that. Now, the problem with having a real building behind your newsroom is that, people can walk in behind you, they can leave bags there. It doesn't actually work to have a real building behind the person giving you the news. It does give you the impression there's lots of people working there, but, stuff happens. Cleaners start dancing to whatever's on their iPod, or the Queen walks in, it's a big problem. This is the new broadcasting house in London. It's an extension of the old radio broadcasting house in Portland Place, and in the basement it has this fantastic newsroom where all the TV, radio, and online people work. The problem is that while they're working, they actually get in the way of the visual impression of the news. This is a PowerPoint presentation that was leaked to The Guardian. It's a very strong message to employees after about a week in operation, telling them, please don't leave your bags around, please don't leave your coats around, don't walk here, don't stand there, don't have meetings here, because you're ruining the impression of the BBC as a kind of professional organisation where we kind of work totally. And this is a map of the newsroom that says you're allowed to walk here, you can go make tea on the left and the right, but if you stand here, you're going to be behind Hugh Edwards at 6 o'clock, and that's going to undermine our credibility completely. And I find this really interesting. Architecture is not just the building, it's about how we use the building and how these things go together. A view you may remember from last summer, fantastic architectural opportunity, some terrible architecture, some terrible contracts, a huge waste of money, some would say. What really interests me is this, the BBC newsroom. Now, you probably saw this every night, or if you were watching it, a lot like me, you would have seen this and thought, wow, that's a great view. Is it a green screen? No, it's real. The BBC built 2 TV studios on top of a council, a block of flats, using scaffold bars and prefabricated sheds. The really fun thing about this, it had no disabled access. So during the Paralympics, they had to build a scaffold elevator on the outside of the tower, like you see on the block. So all those wheelchair athletes, the athletes with reduced mobility, had to go up the outside of the building to get in. So on the other side, you'll probably recognise these pictures as well. Norman Foster's practice designed this building on Gray's Inn Road, and it's been part of TV news and British culture for a long time. And both ITV and Channel 4 have used the building as a way of kind of saying, look, we've got a big building, we've got lots of journalists, they're working hard. Picture on the left is not long after it was built. You'll notice the top floors are unoccupied, and they kind of, they stopped panning down from high because they realised it wasn't making them look good. And then most recently, on the right-hand side, they started using a completely virtual studio, which looks like this. It's been reformatted a few times because now that it's a virtual studio, you can rebuild it with the click of a mouse. Alistair Stewart there is sitting in a completely green studio, a chroma key studio. Everything is put in by the computer. We've been doing this with weathermen and the green screen for showing you the weather forecast for years. This is a German TV news studio. I think this is ZDF. This is one of the most advanced in Europe. Now, the key thing to understand here is only the desk and the newsreaders are real. The cameras are running on the same 3D mapping software as the computer that puts in the architecture of the space. So as the cameras move, the space moves. Rewind back to Montreal. Top picture 2005, bottom picture earlier this year. Same setup. You've got the newsreader, you've got your desk, and you've got your newsroom behind you, the sense of authority that people are busy bringing you the news. Okay? It's all a fiction. This architecture doesn't exist. And while it's really impressive for the BBC or ZDF in Germany, where you have a big newsroom, it's really scary in a small business. Remember, Montreal has a tiny English-speaking population. They don't make money giving news to English people. So this TV news studio is about 1/4 the size of this room. And nothing is real apart from the desk and the newsreader. There's no cameraman, there's no producer. The camera is mounted on an H-frame that can move up and down, left and right. And if you combine that with a zoom on the camera, you can give the impression that the camera is panning through space. And you can make it look really, really big, even though it isn't. So overnight they thought, you know what, the top studio, the one we started with, it's a bit cramped. Let's just make it a bit bigger. Fuck it, Put in the skyline of Montreal. Yeah, fuck it. We'll imagine we're out on the lake, looking into the city, which kind of, for me, just makes it look really stupid. Especially because, one day a month the newsreader comes in wearing a green shirt and they go on air and they disappear. Here's the sad moral of the story. CanWest was the company that owned Global, and they worked something out which doesn't necessarily apply in this country. Green screen technology, which creates fake architecture. You can create fake buildings. You can put people out of, you can make redundancies. You don't need people anymore to produce the news. There's some arrows missing on this map, but I'll kind of point. Canada has 6 time zones, and what they worked out is that one control room in Vancouver could control, it's too late now. Right, one control room here could control the news in Winnipeg here. Oh, there we go. Boom. If every city in Canada has the news at 5 p.m., they're all 1 hour apart from each other. You don't need a cameraman, a producer, a line editor, any of the people who work in the backroom of the news in any one of those cities. You just need a newsreader sitting in front of a green screen. They made them all redundant, and they have one control room in Vancouver controlling every 5 o'clock news as the time zones pass across Canada. I wish I could tell you that means something deep and personal, but I think it's probably just a frustrated anti-capitalist thing gnawing away in my stomach. Thank you for your patience as I work out this idea.